I have a disease, can't wear clothes that cost more than $200, can't eat meals that cost more than $30, so when I'm picking out new clothes at the major stalls and running around the cafeteria specials section, I'll hear voices like this. The class flower says that people shouldn't discriminate against Sarah. She's just a little bit poor. Teacher, the leader is coming. Sarah, you should not show up at school today, huh? But I have billions of dollars in personal assets, and the leader who is coming to school today is my master's brother. Hey, my master says I am destined to be a runaway, destined to be a person who can't enjoy happiness, but my grandfather doesn't think so. He's made money all his life, and his only granddaughter can't spend it. Isn't that a slap in his face? So, my grandfather spent billions trying to help me break my destiny. However, it didn't work. I still got rashes all over my body when I wore expensive things, and stomach aches when I ate good food. In order not to aggravate me, my grandpa waved his hand and summoned the chefs and designers, asking them to use the cheapest ingredients to make me the best things. If that didn't work out, we'd take them to court and make them pay for everything. When I heard this, the corners of my mouth began to twitch. The old man really seems to be someone who can do such things. Old man Jiang, that bastard, stirred everyone up, and finally someone came to my door begging me, and it just so happened that I owed him a favor, so I helped him take over this mess. But, master, is it really okay for you to call me a mess to my face? Sarah, now that you've inherited my mantle as well, your life of running around will be broken at the age of 20. Take this letter of introduction and go down the mountain. When I took the letter of introduction, master, he couldn't restrain the corners of his mouth from rising. Hurry up. I want to see an ambulance in 10 minutes. Outside the mountain gate, a group of black-clad bodyguards gathered around a car in which lay a middle-aged man with half-day-old hair, his secretary anxiously shouting into the phone, the veins on his neck bulging. But there was only a small village at the foot of the mountain, so how could we possibly get an ambulance here in 10 minutes? I dragged my suitcase and sighed, spread out, my eyelids drooped, and I spoke lazily, flattening my uncle on the ground. Everyone looks towards me, completely ignoring my words. That Mr. Secretary was still communicating with the other end of the phone. I took out the silver needles from my bag, removed one and held it between my 2 fingers, and said again, if he doesn't get out of the way in a minute, he'll die. The head of the bodyguard blocked in front of me, drinking. This young lady, the person inside, is not something you can mess with. Hurry up and leave. I have a smile on my lips, my eyes half narrowed, and I inclined my head to look at the person in the car. His face was purple, his eyes were closed, and the corners of his mouth had begun to foam. Looking again at the crowd with their strong attitudes, I shrugged my shoulders and collected my needles, ready to leave. Wait a minute. The secretary's lips pursed into a line, as if he was making a very big decision. He looked at me stonily. Please. He put the man on the ground as I said. I twisted the end of the needle, and carelessly stuck it into the uncle's brow. The people around us sucked in a breath of cold air, and tried to stop it, but the secretary stopped them. He looked at me and said, the only person we can trust now is this young lady. I'm sure she can tell that Mr. is not an ordinary person. If something goes wrong because of her negligence, this is a warning to me. I slowly retrieved the ointment I had just taken out, and raised my eyes and said, go dig up a pile of cow dung and come over. I collected my smile and said, you can wipe it off when you wake up. Uncle is a really elegant person, and he thanked me one after another. I carried my bag, and waved my hand. Sir, let's go back and check it out again, and come back to visit this master some other day. The secretary said, and was about to invite the uncle to the car. I frowned lightly, coldly said, good enough. You now sit in the car upside down for 2 hours. You can really long sleep here. Then do not see the high man, directly see Buddha. You rude Sarah. The secretary blushed and was stopped by the uncle. I am usually lazy about everything, but those who have been treated by my hands want to waste my efforts under my eyes. Don't think about it. Despite being scolded by me, the uncle didn't get angry. He took out a card and said, "This is my business card. If the little miracle doctor needs anything in the future, he can call me." He then turned back to the secretary and said in a cold voice, "Apologize to this young lady." The secretary glanced at me and lowered her head, saying, "Sorry, I was in a hurry. I didn't care what others thought of me." I dragged on my own suitcase and waved my hand at the uncle, saying, "Take a few days to rest before you take a long-distance ride. This body of yours." I looked at this empty shell of a person and urged, "Anyway, rest well." Uncle smiled at me and thanked me once again. It was already dark when I arrived at Nanjiang University. There was a girl who was late with me. I pulled out the letter of introduction at the gate. The gatekeeper looked for a long time, but he did not recognize the seal on the letter, did not let me enter. The girl behind me, with the letter of acceptance, all the way into the school. I do not know why. She left before she gave me a meaningful look. I waited at the door for half an hour before the teacher who picked me up arrived. "My name is Chin. I'm your homeroom teacher, so go back to your dormitory and organize yourself first." She reluctantly looked at me and muttered in a low voice, "It's really unlucky that I have to take over a related family. I think about it carefully. Into the South River University is to rely on the master's letter of introduction." She said, "I am a related household seems to be no worse." There was a class meeting in the evening, and everyone went early. The classroom was filled with the excited voices of the students. "Hey, have you guys heard? There's a new student in our class. I heard she's the granddaughter of a big shot. Who is it? Who is it?" This person is very mysterious. Because of her poor health, she has been kept outside previously. This is the first time she is facing the public. I've heard my dad mention that she's the precious granddaughter of the Michael family, which is one of the biggest families in Kyoto. Yes, yes, yes. My dad said that the old man has prepared a dust-washing banquet for his granddaughter. It's next week, and I heard that the day happens to be Ms. Sir's 20th birthday. I'd love to attend. All the people there must be bigwigs. Let's get in good with Ms. Sarah and maybe we'll get an invitation too. Who is Ms. Sarah? I was standing in the doorway looking for a seat when a few people suddenly crowded in beside me. The person they're surrounding looks a bit familiar. Oh, it's the girl who was late together at the school gate today. So we're still in the same class. What a coincidence. Don't guess. The main person you're curious about is right in front of you. The moment he said that, everyone looked here. The girl's friend took her by the arm and held up a card in her hand, saying, "This is the business card given to Emily by the principal herself. Emily is Missy." That card looks a bit familiar. It seems to be the one that the uncle gave me before, and I accidentally dropped it when I entered the school. Emily pulled her friend down and said, "Well, keep a low profile. I'm not a Missy. I'm just an ordinary student like everyone else." She said this, disguised as a rumor. Emily is very pretty, only her skin is a bit sickly white, and she coughs when she says two sentences. "Emily, you're not well. Don't stand here." The class president is a little confused, but our class this time seems to have two students with the same last name. "You are still the same day into the school gate?" Suddenly being asked. My expression gave a beat. The class monitor looked at me with a smile and said, "This is the student, Sarah." The eyes of the whole class fell on me, a small transparent body. I smiled stiffly. "Hi, everyone." A light snort came from the side. "Class president, you don't think this person who is all dressed in floor clothes and looks physically strong as an ox is that Missy, who has been hidden away since she was a child to recuperate from her illness, do you?" She gave me another blank look and said, "Don't think that just because you have a last name, you can come and rub Emily's nose in it." The class president looked at me apologetically and scratched his head. The classmates also quickly forgot about this little episode, and one by one, they gathered around Emily to make friends, and I weakly moved to the empty seat, nibbling on the big bread I bought from the cafeteria. "You didn't have dinner. This is for you." The class president handed over a delicately wrapped chicken leg. "It's expensive at a glance. I'm afraid my stomach will hurt all day if I eat this, but it doesn't seem right to refuse a new classmate. It's the first time I've had one." "Thanks." I took the chicken leg. Master said to be courteous, and I didn't seem to have anything on me, so I finally fished out a piece of a ring that Grandpa hadn't slipped me to play with. "This is for you." "Ah, it's pretty, thank you." I put the chicken leg in my bag and continued nibbling on my bread, turning around to meet the slightly pitying look of the class president. He seems to have misunderstood something. "Sarah-san, let me buy you a dress as a meet and greet gift." I looked at the few patches on the dress and shook my head frantically. This dress was sewn for me by my master, who asked for a piece of cloth from a family in the village below the mountain, and to a certain extent, it can resist the fate of labor. Without it, I would swell up even if I drank a mouthful of broth, not to mention eating meat. "Class monitor, you can spare me." While we were talking, the homeroom teacher took a look at the roster and started to call the roll. Emily was the first and I was the last. Later I realized that the order is according to the high school entrance exam scores. I heard that Sarah got into the university with a letter of introduction from her grandfather in the countryside, so how can this kind of person be a young lady? Then look at Emily, temperament and good, also beautiful, first in the examination. How to see is a dragon phoenix among people, certain people. It is best not to come to the edge. The class teacher, Ms. Cheen, pushed down her glasses. Even when she heard such comments, she turned a blind eye. Oh no, she doesn't even bother to look at me. "Okay, classmates, tomorrow, the school will be visited by a leader, so please raise your spirits and don't neglect him." So certain students who have problems with grooming, I hope that you take the initiative to do something for the school's FAADE on your own and don't show up tomorrow. After the homeroom teacher announced the end of the class meeting, it just so happened that my cell phone rang. "Elder sister, I heard Grandpa say you went down." I silently took my cell phone farther away and said, "You're still as noisy as ever." I begged Master for a long time before he told me that you're at the university. "I'll be at your school tomorrow. It's been a long time since I've seen you." I raised my eyebrows and said, "You are the big leader who came to inspect." Opposite side hemmed and hawed. "Senior sister, don't worry. I will be good and obedient, and won't give you any trouble." Although David is my senior brother, his actual age is 10 years older than me. Probably because he was scared of being beaten up by me during the division, he became a senior sister fan. Thinking of his silly look, I helplessly hold my forehead. A handful of news. A handful of news. Tomorrow comes Monopoly David. I was sleeping soundly, and the sound of my roommate's rustling still woke me up. "I'm sorry to wake you up, but the homeroom teacher asked the class to welcome the leader, and we're running late, so we're making a lot of noise. Why are you talking to her so much? It's not like they need to go to the parade to welcome the leaders. They're leaving soon." I'm still in a daze. I took out my cell phone to see. David, that kid sent me hundreds of nutrient-less messages. I threw my phone aside and went back to sleep. It was about another 2 hours before I woke up. Fishing over my cell phone, I saw that it was full of messages from the class leader and David, class president. This leader is so young and handsome. 15 minutes later, squad leader. The leader is standing at the front door and not coming in, as if he's waiting for someone. 1 hour later, squad leader. I can't stand any longer. What is this leader doing? I can't stand still even if I look handsome. David, sister, I'm at the gate of your school, can I go in? 15 minutes later, David, sister, I'll wait for your instructions at the same place. 1 hour later, David, sister, did I do something wrong and you are angry? Bad. Forgetting that there is a superfluous rule in the division. The junior needs to get permission from the elder before entering the door. At that time I thought the person who made this rule had a hole in his head, and David was a one-track mind. At this time, the class group also went crazy. Class 1, why hasn't the big leader come yet? Classmate 2, yeah, who the hell is he? He's not waiting for the principal, is he? Student 3, class president just went to ask, but was left by the leadership nagging, not back to the news, we are waiting for whoa. Classmate 4, people's legs are numb, crying, when I brushed my teeth. There were many articles in the group, and I could see that everyone was on the verge of collapse. I was embarrassed to apologize in the group, sorry everyone, I'll be right there. The moment my message went out, Emily followed up with a message, sorry to keep you waiting, I'm on my way. Instantly the screen looked like it was stuck with these two messages. Everyone was silent. After a minute, the class leader came back. The big leader said that he was waiting for Missy. This sentence stirred up 1,000 waves. Classmate 1, which Missy? There are 2 of them in our class. I wonder if someone is still happy rubbing people's hot spots. Classmate 2, yeah, Sarah doesn't know how to be shy in front of the owner. Emily, Sarah didn't do it on purpose, don't mind. Class 3, Emily, don't speak for her. She's been trying to rub your nose in it since the first day of school. She really thinks that because she got into school on the same day and has the same last name, she's a big girl. Emily, she probably just wants to try being courted. I can understand that. Sarah, if you want to come then come. I can introduce the leaders to you. I looked at the screen and let out a light chuckle, thinking back to the beginning of the school year until now. It doesn't seem like I've done anything tenuous, right? Just because I have the same last name as Enley, they hate me. I can't figure it out. It seems that Master was right. The people under the mountain are much more complicated than I thought. My cultivation is still too shallow and I've seen too little. Thinking of this, I sent a message to my grandfather. I want to get in touch with the outside world more. I feel out of touch with the world. Over their back, Grandpa will arrange it right away. I looked at the scrolling screen in a daze. Are those idle words and followers attacks the so-called flowery world under the mountain? If that's true, then I'd rather go back to my division to inherit my master's position as a wizard. The group is still going crazy about Emily. Classmate 1, do me a favor and come quickly. My legs are about to break. Classmate 2, Emily, your family in the end how rich. Big leaders have to wait to see you. Hold tight to the rich woman thighs. Classmate 3, you don't have to talk to Sarah. She was poked and prodded on the spot, and now she definitely does not dare to venture out, and may be crying somewhere. The screen is too fast. I can see the blurred eyes and quit, but judging from everyone's reaction, I don't think they want me to show up, right? Then I won't go. I diverted to the cafeteria to buy a burger and a Coke, and was sitting under a tree eating, when I saw a few familiar figures pass me by. It was Emily and her little follower. The little follower gave me a blank look and said, someone still has the nerve to come out. My cheeks puffed out, and as they stared at me, I weakly passed my burger forward. Emily changed her gentle appearance in front of people. She wrapped her hands around her arms and sneered, Sarah, you don't really think that leader is waiting for you, right? I advise you to be a little more conscious and don't appear in front of everyone. I swallowed the burger in my mouth and raised my eyebrows. Are you sure? Emily frowned and looked at me with obscure eyes. Her little follower said, what are you sure about? Who do you think you are? If I tell you to get lost, then get lost. I swept them both a glance and asked, no regrets. You are sick, right? I smiled and stood up, walking towards them. Emily subconsciously stood up straight, sheepishly took a step back. I laughed softly as I stepped, then brushed past them, saying slowly, "Well then, you're done." I went straight back to the dormitory, and a good day started from the bed. The class group is still going live. Emily is here. The goddess is so beautiful, even more beautiful when she smiles. But what's with the big leader's dumbfounded expression? Emily has gone out to pick him up. Why doesn't he come in? Wait. Why do I feel he doesn't look well? Crap, is Emily crying? I was scratching my cell phone and eating oranges when suddenly David called, "Sister, why don't you tell me if you're aggrieved?" Before I had a chance to speak, he mumbled to himself, "If this is known to Master and Grandpa, I shall not lose a layer of skin. No, I'm going to find you now." David took 2 steps, then stopped, and asked cautiously, "Senior sister, can I go in?" I helplessly rubbed my temples and replied, "Come in, good la." About 10 minutes or so, David to my dormitory downstairs. I slightly lifted the curtains to look down. Good guy, he is ready to demolish the house. Under the dormitory building, there were people standing densely, classes lined up very neatly, David in the forefront. On both sides stood black-clothed bodyguards. The leaders of the school, who are not usually seen, were all smiling, and our homeroom teacher wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled sardonically from the sidelines. Emily's face was pale, her lips pursed into a line, and there were teardrops on her face. When I went out with my slippers, David's black face lit up and shouted, "Sister!" Said he was about to rush over. I raised my hand to interrupt his next move. David deflated in aggravation and stood, half a meter to my side. I moved my eyes to the people present. My classmates were all staring at me blankly, not knowing what to do. "Sarah, so you're Missy." The class president was the first to react and break the deadlock. His eyes were glowing and he felt that he was happier than I was that I was Missy. The rest of the class didn't know everything that happened before. They all whispered and discussed looking at me, the legendary character. On the contrary, the expressions of the homeroom teacher and our class were a bit wonderful. "Ouch, Sarah, you're David's friend. Why didn't you say so earlier? Isn't this a misunderstanding? Teacher was too busy before, didn't even understand properly. It's my negligence. You won't blame the teacher, right? The homeroom teacher is worthy of being a veteran in the workplace for many years," and said she was about to come over to take my hand. I carelessly took a step forward, not looking for traces to avoid her kiss. Emily was not the least bit surprised by my identity, and was now staring at me, with a mouthful of silver teeth. "Elder sister, this Sarah is the one who bullied you, right?" David is really quite bluffing. When he is serious, he stares at Emily with a cold face. He doesn't look at what kind of goods he is, claiming my elder sister's identity. Can you withstand this bit of fate? Emily's face was red for a while and white for a while. Tears were rolling in her eyes. I feel sorry for her. Her little follower shivered and blocked in front of her and said, "It's not like Emily herself wants to claim it. Everyone has to think so. What can she do?" She said and glanced at me, saying, "Moreover, why didn't you say earlier that you are a big lady? I think you just want to see Emily's jokes, so vicious." David's eyes narrowed slightly. "Who allowed you to talk to my senior sister like that?" The little follower's legs went weak with fear. When he glared at her, Emily wiped her tears and said, "I'm sorry, David. I didn't know that everyone misunderstood. I never wanted to impersonate Missy. In fact, my family is also from here, and with one last name, people have preconceived ideas. If you want to get out of this anger, I will do whatever you want to do. Don't take it out on my friends. Emily is usually quite good with everyone. She is so pitiful. But it seems that we are overly aggressive." I laughed lightly and said, "Oh, You're a member of the family too. I looked at David inquiringly again and said, during my absence, there was a second Michael family in Kyoto. David thought for a while and said, no, we know all the families with a little bit of ability. We really haven't heard of any other family. Amelie's expression was unnatural, and she smiled stiffly and said, I'm a relative. My father is John. Oh, John, ah. David looked at me. Senior sister, this John is a relative of the last 2 years more capable people. Hearing David say so, Emily unconsciously straightened her waist, but he went solo behind the old man's back some time ago, lost a fortune, and has been expelled from the family. David sneered and looked at Emily. How dare you still use the family's name to solicit outside? My dad didn't do it on purpose. Ha, one sentence of not on purpose and that's it. Little sister, do you know how much money your dad owes? $70 million. If the old man hadn't cleared the debt, he'd have been forced to die by the debt collectors. How can you still be ungrateful and bully your granddaughter at school? Really counting, my elder sister's generation is even older than your father. The family has been passed down for 100 years. The most important thing is to pay attention to etiquette. You say you are a family man, but you can't even respect your elders. Isn't it ridiculous? Emily bit her lip in death. Tears kept flowing. It's a pity that David is just a one-track mind. Where does he know what pity is? Okay? What are you bothering with her? I looked at the crowd. Do your business. Everyone has been waiting for quite a long time. Let them go to eat and rest first. David waved his hand. I felt everyone's enthusiasm. Thank you. All dispersed. David looked at me and smiled, like a big dog waiting to be rewarded. Emily didn't come to class for a few days after this incident, as if she had gone home to recover from her illness. Everyone's attitude towards me has become very subtle, probably because they reacted to the previous hostility too inexplicably. So they look at me, a little embarrassed. It just so happened that my 20th birthday party was coming up, and my grandfather sent me a big handful of invitations. I gave one to the class president, and then stared at the remaining one guilty. The class president joyfully holding the invitations and asked, there are still so many left, who are you going to invite? I looked at him, then shoved all the invitations into his arms, said, class president, the rest will be given to you. I do not know many people. Classmates do not seem to like me too much. I invited them may not necessarily go. You want to give, whoever you want to give it to. The class president had a look like are you misunderstanding something? Who said they won't go? You can't be unaware that the class group is turning into a confessional, can you? He said and flipped the group chat records out for me to see. That said, I really haven't looked at the group in a while. Classmate 3, I checked his worth, and it's currently 10 billion, so I looked down on 10 billion before. Who gave me that face? How dare I? I was made to cry and laugh by my classmates' fancy apologies, and the class president spread his hands and said, do you still think people don't want to go now? You don't even know how envious they were when they heard that I was coming to get an invitation. Then please class president give these to the classmates for me, and welcome them to come and play. I really don't know how to deal with this kind of scene. It's better to leave the socializing to the professionals. The class president shrugged his shoulders and said, fine. The birthday banquet was held as scheduled. The master said that my life of running around would also be broken on this day. After enduring for 20 years, I can finally live a normal life. But unfortunately, on a good day, like this, someone will always come out to spoil the fun. Emily sent a message in the class group that she was getting engaged. The date was on the same day as my birthday, and she's engaged to a very interesting man, President James, very much at odds with the family. I hope everyone can come to my engagement party. Emily said to look at a big red envelope in the group. But the only one who hit on her was the usual follower. After the last misunderstanding was resolved, I made friends with my classmates. and they pulled together a small group that is now gossiping inside. Is Emily's fiancé the one I know? Looking at the invite she sent out, it looks like it is, but that James could be her dad, right? And James is notorious for not checking out his business, so my dad's company blacklisted them a long time ago. Yes, my family has an order was pitched by them. Anyway, this engagement party who go, James' family my life black. I looked at her casually, and didn't make any comments. Who cares who she marries? I just want to hurry up and end this damn life of running around. The hotel where Emily got engaged was chosen across the street from me. She stood at the door in a wedding dress to welcome the guests, and stood on the side of an uncle. He was the size of two of her. My grandfather had called all his old friends to throw me this birthday party. The whole place was so lively that it scared me. I had just gotten out of the car when the reporters rushed up to take pictures of me, and the flashbulbs confused me. My family's bodyguards escorted me inside, and in the center of the lobby my grandfather waved at me. I asked in a low voice, "Where did the reporters come from?" The old man winked. "Didn't you say you wanted more exposure to the outside world? Grandpa is doing pretty well, isn't he?" I glanced at the logos of the major media platforms and lived speechless. Grandpa was surrounded by white-bearded men just like him, and he had introduced me to them before. These were his friends that he had played with from his youth until now. "Hello Grandpa Joe, Grandpa Zhang, and Grandpa Huang. There are 5 big families here, led by Michael's family, which is the most powerful. Zhou, Zhang, and Huang are equally divided, and there is also the most mysterious but not to be underestimated family. I only know their last name is William. I've never met anyone from this family. My grandpa and dad were careful when they mentioned them, and from this moment on, the family's eldest lady was completely exposed to the public eye, no longer needing anyone to guess. Grandpa Joe came up holding an antique box and handed it to me. "A little trinket. It's Grandpa Zhao's birthday gift for you," said he. Pointed to a man in a suit under the stage. "That is my family's incompetent grandson. Opened a dozen companies on his own. Mixed well. Sarah, what do you think?" The man on the stage nodded slightly, humble and polite. "I have not yet answered." Grandpa Joe was Grandpa Huang squeezed out. The old smoothie, really willing to put down heavy heirlooms are sent Sarah, but Sarah, you do not listen to him bluffing you. His broken stuff is not as rare as Grandpa Huang's treasure. Said he took out a gold necklace for me to wear. This is the antique of the Empress Dowager of the Tang Dynasty in China, lining you. I'm wearing a cheongsam today, and it goes very well with this love affair. Thank you, Grandpa Wang. Oh, big star. My boy has tens of millions of fans. What do you think? I looked at the movie star on stage and politely declined. Grandpa Wang, I'm afraid the movie star doesn't need me. He dares. In front of the reporters, Grandpa Huang pulled the movie star onto the stage, and instantly my classmates and some young girls started screaming. The movie star smiled and stretched out his hand, saying, "Sarah, if you need me in the future, just give me a call." "You are joking." I and the Shadow Emperor are politely smiling. Grandpa Huang sighed and pointed to a teenage child at the bottom and said, "So you see him okay? This is my grandson. Small, yes, but don't you young people all like little fresh meat?" Sarah, nod your head, and Grandpa will send his grandson home to you tomorrow. Do you want to hear what you're saying? Old man Huang, pull yourself together. Sarah is definitely my Zhang family's daughter-in-law. Grandpa Zhang pulled me out. Come, future granddaughter-in-law. This is a meeting gift from Grandpa. A bunch of red books were shoved into my hand. Here are the real estate certificates of the stores from the commercial street to the villa area. A small token of Grandpa's appreciation. Good Lord. These 3 giants are richer than one another. Grandpa Zhang smiled with a kind face. Do you want to consider my grandson? Emily walked in wearing a wedding dress holding her fiancé high and mighty. My grandfather's eyes were slightly cold, slightly raised his hand. I gently held his hand, smiled. This is my classmate. He looked at me with a cold snort. The horizontal meat on his face shook. Give the old man smashed. I see who dares. David with a group of people blocking the front, contemptuously looking at James. James, this person belongs to the thugs, the major forces in the spirit of friendly relations, with outsiders in the first place. To him this kind of first-timer many tolerance, but I did not expect that he really take himself seriously. A mole cricket even and lion called weapon. James was stared at by David trembled. Do not know what to think of. He strongly supported his waist, and said, I tell you, the family counts for nothing. The person behind my wife is William. Said he took Emily's hand and said, Baby, we have William as the master, not afraid of them. Hearing William's name, I subconsciously frowned. Even several grandfathers looked at each other. Sarah, don't be afraid. A few of us are still alive. Even William has to give us a little bit of face, for these old faces, although Grandpa Huang said so, it is not difficult to see from his eyes. Really against William, I am afraid that there will be some trouble. I looked at Emily and asked, I do not know which elder of the William family Emily's classmates rely on behind them. Before she opened her mouth, James jumped the gun and said, It's the current head of the William family. As soon as his words came out, the entire parlor began to whisper again. I heard that it was the most powerful figure in the William family. I didn't expect Emily to actually know him, but why do I feel that the name William is a bit familiar? Isn't our principal's name William? Maybe it's the same name. James was very satisfied with the current situation. He had a contemptuous smile on his lips. When William comes back and knows that you guys are bullying my wife so much, he definitely won't let you go, right, wife? Emily smiled warmly, but the panic in the bottom of her eyes couldn't be hidden. Husband, don't talk nonsense with them. Let them get lost. Today is Simone's engagement party. They stole the limelight. James looked at the bodyguards. What are they waiting for? Didn't you hear what my wife said? If she's not happy, Mr. William is not happy. Can you afford to offend William? Smash it. I'll see who dares. My face was already completely cold. Emily subconsciously avoided my line of sight. I sneered. Didn't you say you know William well? I wonder how William looks like. What's his age? How tall is he? Emily didn't dare to look me in the eyes. Of course I know. Very well. William the First also know. Emily completely panicked. James also head forward. You pretend what, big tail wolf? My wife has a private business card given by William himself, and you can talk to anyone with just one mouth. I have some pity smoke to look at him. That business card is not above a cloud, below a sea. There are some rubbing curtains were opened. The person inside is exactly the day in the mountain to save the uncle. Mr. Secretary is still a step behind him. William walked next to me, and respectfully saluted. Miss Sarah, hello again. I looked him up and down and said, You look good. Thanks to your esteemed teacher. I glanced at Emily, who was already scared silly, and said, This lady said she knew you. William's warm face sank, looked at Emily and said, I heard what I just said. I've never seen you, and the business card has only been given to Miss Sarah. My Wei family is just seldom interact with people. It does not mean that someone can take the name of my Wei family to make waves. He called out to the side of the people, The irrelevant people please go. As for this lady, the legal procedures should not be missing. As soon as possible to prepare a lawyer's letter. Don't let her wait anxiously. Understand? Emily was completely panicked. Her tears were spinning. Don't. She grabbed James' arm and cried, Husband, save me. I don't want to go to jail. James' face is also very ugly. I shake off Emily. all your fault. If you don't take William's business card to the door, how can I look at you? And how dare I offend so many people? Now, you have offended several big families. I want you dead." He said he was about to rush up and hit someone, but I asked my bodyguard to stop him in time. "William, it's all because this woman compelled me. It's all because of her. You are generous. Let me off." William frowned lightly and said, "The object you should apologize for is not me." After listening to this, James looked at me full of hope back to say, "Sarah, is that I apologize to you?" William faintly smiled and said, "And your first meeting, I actually went to visit your master witch doctor." Master I slowly drank a mouthful of tea, quietly listening to him continue to say, "You should be able to see that my body is dying." I thought that the master witch doctor would have a solution, but he could only temporarily relieve me of all the symptoms. He told me that he has an apprentice who is gifted and talented, and his strength is above his at a young age. So he recommended that I come to beg this little miracle doctor. "I can indeed save you, but what's in it for me?" William was silent for a while, then suddenly raised his head and said, "My family has a son. He is not bad. Why don't we get married?" Stop. What's going on? The life of running around is broken, and what peach blossom life is going to start again?